Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Pokemon History with your host, Joe R. Vintage Pokemon. And today we're going to be talking about one of the coolest error cards in the hobby, the No Damage Error Ninetales. If you haven't already noticed, the error for this card is that it's missing the attack damage for its move Fire Blast, one of the most egregious and obvious errors to ever make it onto one of the earliest Pokemon cards in the hobby for Wizards of the Coast. And I've got here a couple other examples of this card, and I want to talk today about the history and the origins of this card because I think it's pretty interesting. You'll see here that we actually have a first edition version, a shadowless correct version, and then we've got our error card here. And you can see the first two here are graded by PSA, which is the first thing I want to talk about. This card was originally not graded by PSA. PSA refused to even recognize it, in part because they were unsure about the card's origin. They said to themselves, well, we don't know where this card came from. There doesn't seem to be many copies, so we're just not going to grade it, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But alas, for many years, the only way you were going to get this card graded by PSA was if it made it through by accident. So PSA for many years wouldn't grade it. Thankfully, nowadays, you can have any of the big three grading companies grade the No Damage Error Ninetales. PSA, CGC, and BGS Beckett all recognize this particular error card. And you can see this one is graded by BGS. So that does leave some questions to be answered, though. What are the true origins of the No Damage Error Ninetales? Where did it actually come from, since that was one of the big reasons why PSA didn't want to grade it to begin with? So there's really two places that a card can come from if it's in base set, either a booster pack or a theme deck. And the theme deck that the Ninetales is found in would be the brushfire theme deck. And I think it's important to note before we continue that the No Damage Error Ninetales is a shadowless Pokemon card, meaning that it has a shadowless border here. There is no such thing as a shadowed No Damage Error Ninetales. You also cannot find this card with a first edition stamp on it. So this card is specifically shadowless and is specifically not first edition. So let's take a look at booster packs. If the card came in a booster pack, then you'd have some firsthand accounts of people pulling it from a booster pack. I feel like it's pretty memorable, and the fact that there's no videos or people claiming they pulled it from a booster pack tells you that that is a strike against that being where it comes from. We also know that the way holographic cards work for base set, they tended to be all on uncut sheets, randomly assorted, and then they would be cut up and inserted into the booster packs. It's only after the uncut sheet is printed that a first edition stamp would be put on it. So if this card was in booster packs, there would be an off chance that maybe one of the No Damage Error Ninetaleses would be first edition. And that was never seen. There's no accounts of that or evidence of any of these error cards being first edition. So that's a strike against it coming from booster packs as well. So that leaves the Brushfire theme deck. The Brushfire theme deck is one of 5 theme decks that have holographic base set cards in them. Each deck contains a specific holographic card, and this one has the Ninetales inside. And you can see there's the front, there's the back. Now recall, in order for the card to be a No Damage Error Ninetales, it has to be shadowless. So the theme decks would have either shadowed cards or shadowless cards inside of them. And the only way to guarantee with certainty, just looking at the theme deck, the only way to know with certainty that it is going to have a shadowless deck inside is if it has a gold strip across the top here. And you can see on this deck, you can see that there is this strip. It's a pull tab, really, to help you open up the deck. So if that pull tab was gold, you would know that it's got a shadowless Ninetales inside. But that's not a guarantee of having the error. Only a very select few theme decks potentially had this error card inside. So here's where it gets interesting. We do have firsthand accounts of people saying they pulled this card out of a theme deck, including Gary King Pokemon or Gary King Collectibles, as well as many others saying, hey, I remember one of my earliest cards that I got was from the Brushfire theme deck, and it didn't have that 80 on it. Now, on top of that, we also know that the way theme decks, the way the holographic cards are printed, they are on uncut sheets as well. But unlike the regular cards in booster packs, the holographic cards are like in rows. So you'd have rows of Ninetales, rows of Hitmonchans, rows of Mewtwo's, and they would get cut up and they would be put exclusively in the theme decks, which is why if this error came from one of those sheets, it would make sense that you would never see it in a booster pack. So it wasn't until 2019 that the first actual evidence came forward in the form of an eBay listing, and a sold eBay listing, that the no damage error Ninetales actually came from the Brushfire theme deck. You'll see a picture of it on screen. This card was shown still sealed in the plastic wrap, but outside of the Brushfire theme deck box. And that was awesome because it was the first evidence that this card came from the theme deck with certainty. It had been hypothesized, but now here was evidence that it came from the actual theme deck box. Now, a couple of years later, or less, I'm not sure of the exact timing, TCA Gaming found another deck with the no damage error Ninetales on top, which is always how it was positioned inside the plastic wrap. So now we have multiple sources coming forward with picture evidence of the card coming definitively from the Brushfire theme deck. Now, furthermore, it wasn't conclusive whether or not it came from specifically the gold strip Brushfire theme deck or a non-gold strip Brushfire theme deck, because remember, the card has to be shadowless, and the deck would have either shadowless cards or shadowed cards in it. Shadowless cards could have been from either pull tab, technically, gold strip or not, but the gold strip was the earliest. So some people thought maybe this card was exclusive to gold strip decks. However, many have been opened and nobody is yet to come forward saying that this card came from a deck with a gold strip on it. TCA claims that his came specifically from a deck that did not have a gold strip. So that is a point in the favor of this card coming from the theme deck, and specifically theme decks without gold strips on them, which makes it even harder to find because it's very tough sometimes to tell if a theme deck does have shadowless cards or not in it. There are tricks and tips to try to figure it out, and I suggest you take a look at some videos to try to figure that out for yourself. But as far as we know, the no damage error Ninetales comes from theme decks. All the evidence is pointing towards that. So can you go out, buy a theme deck off of, let's say, eBay, open it up, and pull a gem mint copy of this card? Well, that's where things get even more interesting, because no, you can't. Because the way the shadowless theme decks work, due to their age, all the holographic cards that sit on top are probably damaged, because the theme decks would be wrapped in a plastic wrap on the inside, and there was a glue that held that plastic wrap together, and that glue came in contact with the card. So basically, unless you opened the theme deck early in its lifespan, that glue with time damaged the card sitting on top, which would include any no damage error Ninetales that you find. So it's unfortunate that this card will probably never again be pulled out of a deck and graded as gem mint, mint, near mint / mint, or even near mint at this point. That glue basically guarantees that any card you pull out of the theme deck will probably only be a 6 at best. So this card in a high grade, basically priceless. Coupled with the fact that it is so hard to find. I mean, it took TCA many opened Brushfire boxes before he finally found one. It's hard enough as it is just to find a theme deck that's shadowless, but finding the no damage error Ninetales inside of a shadowless theme deck, that's truly difficult to do. So there it is, the no damage error Ninetales. a really sick error card, one of the most obvious errors in the hobby early on, and borderline priceless if you have one in mint condition, because that glue makes it near impossible to grade in high grade at this point with any of the three big grading companies, PSA, BGS, or CGC. So that's our history on the No Damage Error Ninetales, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like and subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. I'm Joe R. Vintage Pokemon, and we'll see you all next time.